This is a tree from Bonsai Masterclass, my second book.
All right.
Yeah, you won't recognize it, but this is...
It's been restyled a little bit.
Yeah, a bit. It used to be a cascade tree. Picture was a terrible picture, but the publisher liked the color of the pot, and that's why he took the picture.
Well, hiya, it's Xavier, the Bonzo Tree, and I know why you're here. You still want to know what on earth these two glasses are about, why I haven't drunk them, and why I still haven't finished my Peter Chan book. So should we get started then?
If you just look at the thickness of the trunk, it is quite thin for the size of the tree. Now, if you look at styling a bonsai, typically what you look for is a tree height that is maybe 6 to 12 times the thickness of the trunk. If I take this 2 centimeters, I end up here. So basically I think what I would do...
Don't watch!
It's not my tree, so I won't do it. That's not the sort of person I am. I'll leave you to decide that.
Could I whack a great big length of wire down the centre core and wire into a nice little classic typical bonsai S shape? Would that work with this?
This would work, absolutely.
You are so predictable.
The main concern I would have with that is this whole section doesn't have branches. Now you can get it to backbud and get branches, but it doesn't bring anything to your tree. Except for one thing. If you let this grow for another 2 or 3 years, your trunk will double in size. And then this whole top part you can still use for your tree. If you leave it at this size, you might have to cut back to the first or the second layer of branches and create your tree from that. And that really is a choice for the owner on how you want to go. If you want to go all the way down to these first branches, then the foliage that you take off is so much that your tree might get into trouble. So then I would really wait until springtime. When the tree is starting to power up again and you see extension, then I would cut it so low, so that over winter you have all this foliage helping the roots, because pines in winter, wet roots, cold, is not really great, and then all the foliage that you have will age. So these big cuts, I'd not make them in fall, certainly not on pine, I do them in spring. It's actually the most fundamental question to anybody doing bonsai, right? You have a plant, where do you want it to go? If you want a big fat trunk, the more you prune, the longer that's going to take. And if you want it big and fat, then you put it on the ground. You let it grow, run wild. And there's this balance between how much do I let it grow, more growth, bigger branches, bigger scars. So this is a balance that you have to find for yourself. If you want a big fat trunk and you want a nice tree within the next 5 to 10 years, buy a big fat trunk.
Well, you know, it's brilliant because actually I've thought about it, and I'm going to do what I rarely have done. Now, my technique, which Jelle is very complimentary about, is actually being the slow but regular pruning, growing, growing right through. And you know what? He has said that I've actually got quite a good collection amongst them of some well-developed trees. You did say that, didn't you? Didn't you? Really?
I didn't mean to say it.
Those acting lessons really paid off.
So I'm going to take your advice, let it grow out, and we might chat about it in another year or so.
Can I just reinforce something that I was saying? I just see a tree here. This guy has so many trees, but you look at this little Chinese elm. Did you grow this from a cutting or air layer or something like that?
Cutting.
If you look closely at the bark on this tree, you see that the bark is breaking up. It's really corking up. It is really starting to become an aged bark. So even though this is a very young looking whip, if you just look at surface level to this tree, and you start looking closer, you see nice taper and movement in the branches, you see the barking up. This is exactly what bonsai is about. It's a very old looking tree in a pot. Now there's all sorts of things you can say about the design, and you can say the trunk is way too thin, but it is an ancient looking plant if you look close up, and that's of value in and of itself. Not every bonsai needs to have a big fat trunk. It is really nice to see aged trees in a pot rather than just young cuttings.
Do you know, sometimes I sit there and I look around, and it's very hard to put across to people until they see it, actually the texture of the bark, and the fact that some people just see a plastic pot and this long whip-like thing and go, well, that's nowhere near. But actually, and Jelle has pointed out, and it feels good to have it pointed out, but actually with a little bit of cutting I could probably turn it in a nice pot. It would then really sort of pop. But yeah, I've got a lot of little trees like that and they're absolutely brilliant.
Cut it off there. Okay. That's a nice little tree. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
These are-
Corin's, what is it called again?
Greenwood's
Bonsai
Greenwood's
Nursery.
Bonsai.
And you look at these gorgeous trees here.
Yellow, what's that you've got in your hand at the moment?
Can only see one there.
I don't know if you know, but there are some potters that are just famous. And this is John Pitt Pot.
Right.
That's a Pitt Pot. And just look at that. And these pots are hard to get. It's of course a famous British potter. So now with Brexit it is more and more difficult to get these pots on the other side. And I'm very tempted to not leave this here. I just don't know how to get it home. Xavier, this is why you don't take people to famous bonsai shops. I just don't know what else I'm going to see. Because if you look around in this store, this Greenwood Bonsai Nursery, the collection of pots, handmade all pots, this is just insane. Just only for the pots it's worth coming here.
But I saw your eye go to that pot, and I really was intrigued to know why it was that you can't let go of it. I mean, he literally hasn't let go of it since we've been in here for 20 minutes.
Well, it might be that somebody else runs off with this pot, and that's not going to happen to me.
Hi Corin, thanks ever so much for letting me come and speak to you. It's an absolute privilege, an incredible shop as well, having been here for years. But one of the reasons I've come is because back in 2017, I had the luck of finding an oak stump that was about this high, and it had no branches or anything. I grabbed it, went in the back of the van, and in the usual sort of hobbyist way, I've bunked about with it. I've grown a few branches and I haven't really thought about it. And I had the opportunity to come in today and I thought, do you know what, why not find out from you whether you would say tip it, or whether you think there's some ideas or something we can do. And I appreciate that you've had nothing to do with what's gone on with it. And so I'm just going to roll.
So you've been on for 5 or 6 years. You've been growing.
It's been a bit. I've probably done it for about 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said it didn't have many branches on it.
It had absolutely no branches, so I grew a lot of the lower branches. But it has got a lot of movement, and the apex, or the top third, looks like a tree in itself.
You've got a lot. Like I say, in the upper sections, it's quite twiggy.
Yeah.
These lower sections need a bit more vigour and growing out a little bit more. But it's hard to get vigour on oak because they're generally a bit lazy and they do everything at half the speed of any other tree. This apex is getting a bit too tall.
Yeah.
I'd be looking to perhaps reduce that a little bit, either by trimming or maybe wiring some of it to come a little bit lower.
Okay.
But also, over the next few years, keep the top of that trim quite tight to put some energy and vigour into these lower sections.
So really let those grow
down. If suppose some growth off the end of them, let them grow out a little bit. And what do you feed it on?
He feeds on fear.
Because the fertiliser costs so much, and because I've made the mistake of, like all amateur people, we get loads of trees in, and we get loads of cuttings, and I've got about 700 trees.
Right.
And I'll have me biogold, and then I might have my bone meal, but I've got no regime for it, and for this, I've got absolutely no regime at all.
You can't say that fertiliser costs a lot when you're using biogold, which is the most expensive fertiliser, right? So, and that's a tree in training, so just use Naruco, which is like a fifth of the price of biogold.
Right.
You'll get the same results from it, I would suggest, or similar. Let's say similar results. We don't get ourselves into trouble. And it's also quite good at getting leaves quite green and bright. Okay. See, that's a little bit sort of washed out colour-wise.
Definitely this year's felt that way.
So one of our oaks, we put Naruco on it, and oaks will always have a tatty leaf at this time of year, particularly with the season we've had. But if you haven't been feeding it that intensively, then that's your main stumbling block now in advancing this tree on. Yeah.
Tell me why this is bonsai.
Well, what I like about it is that if you look at the crown, it's much more rounded than yours, and there's one central trunk instead of all these branches that come up. So you've got nice taper here to the trunk.
By the way, are you enjoying the British weather?
This is rubbish. Let's go find ourselves some coffee or something.
It was
hot,
sunny 10 minutes ago.
You told me it could be bad weather, but this bad? Come on.
So has Jelle bought something at Bonsai for breakfast? I think maybe this Pitt Pot is going into his Pitt pack.
Don't tell the world what I spend on pots. Come on.
Well, I'm not going to tell them what you spent on it. You've got to buy me lunch yet. I can't see myself.
You can't talk.
Okay, there are loads of other questions. I'm aware that we've practically finished our breakfast, and you know the day's moving on. It's nearly lunchtime.
I'd like some coffee, actually.
It's not a bad idea, actually. What's your choice tipple for during the day? Coffee or tea?
Up till lunch, coffee. After that, tea.
And are you a big drinker? No, we won't answer that. He's not.
Liters of tea.
Litres of tea. This,
Yeah.
I think it's a false cypress, and it has been the sickest thing ever. But over the last couple of years, I've just ignored. I put it into a better substrate and left it in the garden, and it has just flourished over the last couple of years. And I was just getting to the point of, can I do something with it straight away? And I saw you, and I thought, do you know what? Maybe Yellow, you've got an opinion.
Do you see how your tree has two tops?
Well,
This is the top branch. The other is thinner than this top branch.
yeah.
Or the side branch. Take this off. You tilt it around and you place it like this. Then this becomes a nice little bonsai tree with the top here. You could bring this down a little bit. Maybe this one as well, and you have a nice back branch there.
There's a way we'll decide this, and it links in with another question we had, which I wasn't going to do because I thought it's a bit silly.
Oh, great.
But you know what? It's not. Have
Which one?
you heard of the quaint English game of rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors, scissors, fuck!
Yeah, and
I
it
think
actually
you
is
get
missing
rock.
Spock as well.
Paper, scissors, and
Rock, paper, bonsai scissors.
so we need to bring a bonsai element into it. So, are you willing to do that? And whoever wins gets to make the decision. So whether the branch
Do you
stays
really
or goes.
want to gamble your bonsai scissors?
What do you think? Rock, paper, scissors? Yeah.
Nah.
Just
Let's stay with bonsai.
let's just do it.
Well, there's always this thing about how much do you cut off, right?
How much do you cut off?
Yeah, because I can cut it off all the way here, but with a juniper it's always nice to have some dead wood. So I prefer to just clip it off.
It's always good to have sharp tools.
Well, and to actually know your tools. And then you can of course make a gin out of it by removing the bark. And actually for the viewers at home, this is really boring.
Yeah.
It is peeling off the bark, and with a scissor or with a knife you can just cut along the bark line, and then with your gin pliers you can squeeze the bark and it will come off.
Oh, I'm bored. I tell you what. Let's come back when I've made Yellow do all the hard work, and we'll see how good it looks.
But what I can recommend, this is really good stuff. This is gin liquid, and it protects against fungal infections, and it whitens the wood. However, not for now. You first let the wood age a little bit, because once you put this on, it will stop aging. So you leave it for a year without on the juniper, and then it will look much better if you put it on afterwards.
And yeah, Adam of Notion Bonsai has done a really good product there, and I'm very happy with some stuff. But you do need to let it age a bit. I hadn't thought about that before. Really good point. Thanks for that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, would you believe this, Yella? This is what's come in the post. It's one of the airlayers from Jason's Shishigagara. I was troubled.
Lion's mane, lion's head maple.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, for an airlayer,
Well, if this is an air layer, I'd be interested in seeing his real tree, because this is quite a big plant for Shishigashira. They're quite rare in bigger sizes, and his seems to have grown really, really strongly when he was layering this. Good skill, the boy.
that was a big thumbs up from Yella. I was really impressed when I saw it. So yeah, and it's in a good substrate, and it's in a pond basket, and it's secured it so it wouldn't get knocked over by the wind. But even I noticed there seems to be good, healthy growth, post separation. So I think he said he did 5 or 6 of them in one go. But while we've got such a great specimen in front of us, should we continue to answer questions? Quickly, vermiculite.
What about
Because we're on soil. I think, why is it people don't use vermiculite very much? And I thought that was a strange one, because literally there's a bag here. I'm one of the big proponents of using vermiculite, and the reason why I use it is because I think it holds moisture, and because I'm now completely on the inorganic zeolite pumice, I like the vermiculite to just know I get some more moisture retention. And I'll be honest with you, it's also a slightly cheaper way of filling space, which I used to use organic to do. I don't use perlite simply because I know a lot of people use it. It just floats away whenever you water. Have you got any sort of options or opinions about it? Because I know you use vermiculite.
Well, the vermiculite that I have is very fine grained. So I like to have the same grain size in my pot, and if I use something very fine grained in a coarser substrate, it will just accumulate at the bottom and clog up my substrate. So I've never considered using it, but maybe you get coarser grains, or
I can get different size grading. So I've got you can get 1 to 2, 3 to 4 mil. I find I use a 3 to 4 mil in most of my.
I find that just my pumice holds water quite well, and I have a clay-based particle in there as well.
And I think, there you go, and that was the question I'd have actually asked. Do I need to use vermiculite? And I think when I say also use it as a bit of a filler, there's the answer. The pumice and the
Diatomaous earth.
yeah, the clay base is also very good at retaining water. So
I'm not going to openly admit that I have kitty litter in my substrate.
He didn't just say what I think he did he?
I am going to pop in a warning though, not just any kitty litter. You need a brand that has diatomaous earth in there, and that is just an organic clay-based particle that is baked, that is hard, that doesn't fall apart. Pretty much all kitty litter is unsuitable because it will fall apart and it will form a clay muck.
we could go on for hours and hours and hours doing bonsai for breakfast, but you know, bonsai for breakfast is supposed to be short, snappy, 9-10 minutes at most. What was my last one? 32 minutes, I think. Look, Jelle is worth the time. I hope you appreciate it. We have incorporated a lot of the questions, the ones that we didn't, thanks for sending them. I'm so over the moon that you came over.
It's a pleasure.
I'm even more over the moon that this is just the first day. This is an Italian Alder that you know in a previous video I was dabbling around with. I decided to have a bit of fun, chop a load off and try and do a semi-cascade with it. And it's been sitting there largely ignored, but I said Italian Alder are quite a good species to muck about with. Be honest, any sort of potential, any sort of future?
Your viewers already think that I'm rude.
Go on, give it the true Jelle compliment.
The nice thing about these species is they develop really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So they can grow lots, they can fatten up very quickly. So if you want to cut things off, you can do that and regrow it within the year. Now what I would cut off is this part.
What, the cascade part?
Yeah.
And then just grow that?
You know why? 2 reasons.
Okay.
This is straight.
Yes.
It doesn't have taper.
Yes.
So this is not pretty. And this branch that goes up, where does it come from? You trickster.
Underneath.
It comes from the bottom.
Yeah.
So if you take this off, you solve both problems. And these grow so fast you can take a new side branch and bring that down later on.
Well, could I cut that now?
With this species you can cut
You
it
can cut it anyway. So, hey, hands up. Do you know, I didn't think I was going to do any more, but I think we will actually just do that and just see if you are right about that. And I'm just taking that wire off because so many times I cut.
And you can throw your scissors away after that.
Yeah. Oh, we've got an interesting story about scissors. So I'm going to put some cuphead in that. And do you know what? I don't know about yourselves. Put down in the comments. Do you think that improved it 100%? We're leaning? Are we leaning or you're... Hang on. It's hard to tell. Sometimes it looks... Do you know what? We could be leaning, in which case imagine we're in the middle of the Atlantic. We're in the middle of the Atlantic on a luxury cruise and we're just bobbing along with the waves. Now seriously, there was a question actually about cost, and how do I cost out the soil, whether it's got bark in it, whether it's got vermiculite in it, and stuff like that.
Yeah, how much will the cost
how
be
much
for a unit,
cost
right?
for a unit of...
So I myself have 300 pots. So if I buy substrate, I buy half a ton of substrate. Pre-mixed, zeolite, BIMs and lava, and I get a few cheap bags of pine bark shredded and I mix that in as I go along. So my cost is pretty much the volume cost of the pre-made mixture, and I don't really look into separate components. This is dangerous, but I am not convinced that there's a massive difference in the different mixtures and blends that you can use, except for organic versus non-organic. There is a big difference in what you use, but the other blends, most of the nutrients that the plant gets, they get from the fertilizer we give them, and if you adjust your fertilizer schedule, you compensate for what the substrate does, and you just water once or twice a day in summer and not think too much about it. So for me the cost is just the cost of the raw substrate, and I don't really think about it much. I think what is very important to realize, if you are doing bonsai on a budget and you're really concerned about the cost of bonsai, or you are crazy like Xavier or me and you have too many plants and that really becomes a factor, substrate. Especially if you repot every second year, you need a lot of substrate, and you have 2 questions. Where do I go with the old stuff? And how much is going to cost? Well, you can solve both of them in one whammy. You can reuse substrate. Lava, zeolite, vermiculite, all those components are just mineral kernels. You can dry them, you can sift them, get rid of all the fine dust, and then reuse them. The one thing that you need to make sure of, what do you need to make sure of?
I mean, it's you bake it, don't you, in a plastic bag so that it's...
I heat it, and that is to avoid diseases from spreading. So any plant that dies in a pot gets binned with the substrate.
almost drove right past.
And we've arrived at Herons, and we were the first ones there, and actually we helped open the gates, and there's Jelle. Didn't get a big breakfast. It's incredible to be here. I hear about this place all the time, though those two trees over there, but I'm sure we'll get some much better footage.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Hi. Morning.
Just a few of his trees. I know there's loads and loads of tours that people have done, but do you know, a bonsai for breakfast, you get everything. You don't just get jelly with your dinner. Well, sorry, I should say Jelle, shouldn't I? That's a bit of a weak joke. But now we're here at Herons. Oh look, hi Jelle. Do you think those are individually grafted on, or that's deadwood on that?
Did you really just ask me that?
No, that's natural. This is how this tree grows. It is a cork bark black pine.
A cork bark?
It is grafted on regular black pine at the bottom, the base, but the branches are grown this way naturally. This is the form this tree grows in. Species. So you have here the cork, and this is the normal black pine base. So this is what it does develop naturally by itself, but it is always grown as a grafted species or specimen. I'm sure you've seen my cork bark black pine on the video. Did you think that was a fake? No.
Thank you for that. Peter, again, thank you very much for even allowing us to come down here, and I feel it's a privilege.
No, don't say that.
But the reason why I say that is because one of the big things that got me back into bonsai, and I've been sort of dabbling for 22 years, was, you know, my wife died 3 years ago, and her last words were, "You've got to keep going, get back into bonsai." And she actually said to me, what was that person you said? And he rabbles around and he like cuts trees really, and he does everything with, and I think he did something really good with azaleas that you learned from. And she was actually speaking about you.
Really?
And one of the most influential videos for me, and you've done so much wonderful stuff, was showing how easy it is to prune Satsuki azaleas. And you took away, for me, you took away the fear and all the rule books and everything. You said, look, just do this, and then it'll come back. And I did one of my early YouTube videos was, I think it was pruning Satsuki like Peter Chan. And I then came back to it 3 months and said, see, it works exactly like he says. And I know it sounds silly, but thank you.
Oh, I'm always touched by it because I don't want to boast, but I have so many messages. People have had, you know, all sorts of emotional problems, psychological problems, and they find a lot of solace in the way I approach. Forget about ego, forget about your pride or whatever. Just do your own thing, and then you will be at peace with yourself. You won't be able to really enjoy bonsai. In the last few years, when I've got rid of all these competitions and all, I find I'm so much more relaxed.
Just privileged enough to see some of the private collection of stuff that Peter grows himself when he's got time.
This I'm regrowing completely. This I've owned. Most of the tridents came from Japan 1993, and I've been growing them, regrowing them, restyling it. That's a big maple in the process of being made. But I know one or two people have been successful with Mugo pine, especially in Europe. They've been very successful, so I should never say no. And people are making cuttings of pine, which I never thought was possible.
Until you come here, you just cannot describe the sheer volume of trees that he's propagated. He was saying he's out of his sales, up to 50% of it is all homegrown stock. And having seen what he's put together here, you can understand why. He doesn't waste anything. Everything goes back in the ground.
Only 30 years old.
How old? Sorry, 30 years.
30 years, yeah. And that is a Deshojo maple in front of my house. The rest of the year, the colors like that. Only in spring it is bright red.
I like how you refer to 30 years as just 30 years.
Yeah, that's it.
I've been reliably informed it's a Siberian juniper. But very impressive. But always associated with this sort of long deadwood and the way it grows. That almost sounded like a technical expression from me. Very unusual.
Where trees have just been recently wired and styled. Really interesting. So that means that if you talk to staff here, you're probably going to reach out to people that actually know how to do bonsai and are not just salesmen. Now, it's just amazing how much time Peter's just taken to guide us through the nursery. But I understand it. What was your name again?
Tyler.
Tyler. Hey, Tyler. And
Agatha.
Agatha. Tyler and Agatha. You volunteer here for a month. And you don't volunteer here?
No.
You're here permanent staff, right?
Yep, indeed, yeah.
So what is it like? What's the first thing that you learned when you came here from Peter? What's the most fundamental thing that you pick up?
The first thing I learned was I'm never going to have a better place to eat my packed lunch. it's a lovely place to, yeah, just be able to relax for sure.
I mean, when you go around the nursery, you see how the tree develop. And I recognize the trees also from the videos. So I see he's doing a very good job.
I'm just so glad to be here and also see that Peter has taken so much time for us.
Nice.
And I think you are also a tribute to the work that he is doing, just by the representation that you give on the work that he has done on trees and also how they develop over time in the years after. I'll see you at the trophy.
Yeah, deal.
Okay, good to meet you.
No, you too, thank you.
Good to meet you.
You could find me a pomegranate then that I can plant up, because I know you're an expert on seeds and that's how you're going to start your bonsai life.
Yeah, exactly. So I've given you one. So we'll make a nice cut for you. And you enjoy it and make new wonderful plants out of it.
Yeah, he's just going to...
Thank you.
How would I go about growing these from seed then?
If you sow it straight away,
Yeah,
cut it open, take the seeds out and put it in compost.
yeah.
And by March, I guarantee you, it'll be 100% success.
It's an absolute treasure trove what you have here.
So
Really great
send me
to see
some
this.
tip and I will
I
also
will
put it
absolutely
on
do that.
my YouTube
Thank you.
channel.
We're on the way to Heathrow after a very successful visit with a very, very incredible man, Peter Chan. And I'm sure you'll see much more of that on Jelle's video, Growing Bonsai, but we're looking to get into the airport. And I love this car park. What about you, Jelle? Do you?
I do, and just to prove that you are driving and I am filming, no, he is not filming while driving. I love this car park. I love there's so many different makes and models. But what I love most of all, the moment that I leave, freaking sun comes out.
He made me swear.
Take 5. So from breakfast at... did I...
Bonsai breakfast at Xavier's.
I'm glad one of us can speak. I'd say thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed having Jelle on and answering the questions and having a bit of fun with some trees. That's what this is all about. It's supposed to be fun. If you've liked this sort of content, you know what I'm going to say. Massive big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, well, Jelle's asking why.
And why not?
And why not?
It's not horribly expensive to subscribe, but until you do, I'd say keep growing bonsai.
Exactly. All the best, happy bonsai, and God bless. Cheers.
See ya. Hey Xavier, can you give me some advice? This elm, it has big leaves. Your elms all had small leaves. By the way, what do you think? Does the pot match?